Elizabeth, welcome to Scotland. It's wonderful that you're here. Of course, we know you as a trustee on the board of the Age of Scotland Institute, but the subject that you've come to talk about is of huge interest to people here, and it's wonderful to be able to look at Facebook and the role it's playing in the revolution that's happening right now. So thank you for being with us. The point of us really chatting now is to get an idea of the topics that you will be covering when, a little later on this evening, you meet the audience, the sellout audience, in the auditorium here.
Thank you for the welcome. It's always a pleasure to be in beautiful Scotland and, of course, to discuss these issues with an organization that I'm so passionate about at Asia Scotland. I think the primary focus, really, of today's event is to think about the transformative ways in which technology, social media, Facebook, is impacting the space where leaders and citizens connect. We're seeing all around the world that successful election campaigns involve a great deal in today's world of authenticity, of dialogue directly to people, of sometimes even bypassing the media narrative and appealing straight to what people's questions are and what's on their mind. And whether that has happened in the Scottish referendum, in the UK general elections, in the Singaporean elections, or elsewhere, this is really a field that's taking the world by storm.
To what extent does that remove the ability of some politicians that would do so to control events?
I think in some cases it's almost the reverse. I think, for so many decades, politicians have actually had to work through traditional media in order to influence people. That a lot of what I hear is the very welcome story of politicians and candidates being able to share directly their own points of view. Now, that's not to say that there's not a role for traditional media to play. We all need the journalists, the commentators to help us put this into context. But by and large, when politicians realize that Facebook is like a dinner party, that it's like inviting people into your office every day or writing an opinion editorial in the newspaper every single day to speak directly to people, we see them embracing it.
I can see how Facebook empowers people, but it must be something of concern to totalitarian states, such as, to a certain degree, China, and certainly places like Russia, given what happened in the Ukraine, the Crimea, and now in Syria. And I imagine that leaders are uncomfortable in some cases with the fact that they lose control over information flows, and I would be very interested in your views on that.
Well, I think the political narrative is being written in today's world by the people. And the politician's job is to understand that narrative and either use that as a way to make yourself more relevant to the 21st century or gradually to take yourself away from it.
It's great that you're here in Scotland, and of course that gives me the opportunity to ask you the question about the quite extraordinary impact that Facebook had up here, not only on the referendum, but also on the recent general election, quite extraordinary, and the Scottish general election to come next year. And perhaps you could comment on that.
Well, in the Scottish referendum, we actually saw some of the finest examples of political campaigning on both sides, on the Better Together and the Yes Scotland side of the House. And it was fascinating to see, I think, in part, the not only the volume of people, 20 million interactions on Facebook related to the Scottish referendum, but also where these people are coming from. Facebook is increasingly not the realm of the privileged; it's the realm of everybody. And whether you are a college graduate or not, whether you come from a family that one day is going to be influential in politics or not, whether you read it, publications like The Economist or not, you're connected to Facebook. And a political campaign has an opportunity, whether organically or through paid advertising, to reach those people. Certainly in the Scottish referendum, what we saw was incredible use of some of the latest features and products on Facebook to speak directly to citizens. So, when Nicola Sturgeon turned to Facebook to host her first Facebook Q&A, her fan count doubled within 48 hours. People responding to that kind of direct dialogue. And I think what's interesting here in Scotland is to watch that story hasn't finished. That narrative is continuing. We're still seeing ministers here turning to Facebook to have those conversations. I think the election next year will be really interesting because there's a precedent for it, and it's a very good precedent in my experience.
In today's Financial Times, talking about India and China, we see Mark Zuckerberg, your founder, speaking in Delhi. And I'd be very interested to hear about your views on the particular potential of those two rather different markets.
Yes, absolutely. Well, India has been a fascinating space for Facebook. And I have been at Facebook for 7 years. So I was privileged to be part of opening our first office in India, in Hyderabad, when we first came in to India as a company. And I think what's so interesting now is after the most recent elections in India, the impacts that Narendra Modi has. There's even a phenomenon right now that we're looking at, which we refer to as the Modi effect. Wow. And that is such that as Narendra Modi travels the world and meets with world leaders, the world leader he's meeting with will see a spike in Facebook fan counts as a result of that meeting, because Modi is so popular on Facebook. And his impact in the soft power space is huge. Indians have historically responded very, very well to Facebook. Now, China's a completely different story. Mark Zuckerberg, of course, our CEO and founder, has said on the record that we cannot have a mission to connect the world and not connect the world's largest country by population. Yeah. And so that is certainly something that we are exploring as we think about how to embrace Chinese citizens in our platform.
Thanks so much for coming. Thank you. It's been very interesting talking to you about the key points that you've raised. I know there are going to be a lot of questions, and I'm sure many answers later on this evening, but it's wonderful that you've come here, so thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.